And now I'm pleased to present Debbie Priest to provide the message today, the Divine Principle.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Dean for letting me give this presentation, and also to give a class starting next week. In case you didn't see it, there's some flyers in the back. But I wanted to thank you especially because my background is that when I was 20, I joined the Unification Church, and so did my husband Rob, who's here today. And that's where we met, and there was just like so much controversy about the Unification Church and Reverend Moon, and it was so bad that in many ways a lot of us just kind of went into the closet. We didn't talk about our faith, or even admit that was our background, because there was just so much controversy and persecution and negativity. So I really appreciate Dean and Unity, because we here, we welcome people of all different faiths. And when I moved to Huntsville many years ago, 35 years ago, I remember just feeling so uncomfortable and like I didn't belong anywhere for many years. And it really wasn't until I came here in 2010 that I felt like I finally found a home, and I felt like I was just accepted for who I was. And so I appreciate so much this opportunity to give this talk, as well as to teach this class starting a week from today. So last night I was just feeling very unsettled, and I just was not feeling confident at all about my talk, and it's just like, oh God, what do I do? And then I just got this small voice in my ears that said, just speak from your heart. And so I said, okay, well, still, what should I say? And as you can see, I don't have my notes. I spent hours, actually. I don't know how long it takes Dean to do this, because he does this every week. But since I rarely give talks, it takes me hours to plan. It takes me the whole week thinking about, what am I going to talk about? And so I had all these notes in great condition and all printed out. And it's just like, okay, I'm not going to use those notes. So I decided instead that I was going to share a little bit about what led me to the Unification Church when I was 20 years old, and why I joined, and why I stayed, and why I still consider myself a Unification Church member. I attend here. I'm also a Unity member, but I'm very connected with the Unification Church. Fortunately, it's a whole lot easier than when I first moved here, when it cost 35 cents for 1 minute on the phone. So if you want to talk to somebody for an hour, that was $21. And we were really just barely scraping by back then. So it was really difficult to feel connected to the church. But now it's free to talk to somebody in, Australia or wherever. so when I was, ever since I was the age of 15, I just started questioning about life. You know, when you're younger than that, you're just a kid, and you know your main focus is play. And then when I was 13 and 14, my main focus was boys. You know, and did the makeup and all that stuff. But by the time I was 15, I stopped all that stuff because I was just searching so much to understand, you know, what was the purpose of life. And to give you some context, I grew up in the south side of Chicago in a crummy neighborhood. It was kind of like right on the border of the blacks and the whites. And, you know, all the white people were totally freaking out because they were moving in. They were taking over the neighborhood. But anyway, it was a rough neighborhood. And when I was a teenager, there were actually, when Martin Luther King got killed, there were riots in my high school. And I remember it was like two miles to get to my school. So I used to take the bus. But then there was like fights on the bus, and I was so scared that I just decided to walk to school. This was in Chicago. You know, it didn't matter, you know, how cold it was. It was like I was afraid to get on that bus, so I just walked to school. So that was part of the context. And also, you know, when I was 9, my parents divorced, and by the time I was 14, my father had completely disappeared from our life, and we were living with an evil stepfather. And then my best friend, who lived 2 doors away from me, who we used to have sleepovers all the time, she moved, and so I was very lonely as well, and my home life was not happy at all. I used to just sit at the piano for hours. That was like my comfort, just playing the piano. And you know, and you just would be hearing sirens all the time. And then there was this whole sexual revolution going on, and so everybody was having sex with everybody, and everybody was taking drugs, and it was so confusing. And then I would get on, I had a friend I lived on the south side, and my friend lived on the north side, and I would get on the elevated in the L and ride it from my home to her home, and I would go through the projects and just see all this poverty, and I was just surrounded by gray is concrete. That's where I grew up, in this concrete jungle. So like in comparison to here, this is like heaven, green everywhere. And like where we live, our house, it's like a mansion in comparison to the apartment that I grew up with, 7 people and one tiny little bathroom. So there was like all this stuff going on, and it was just like, is there any purpose to life? And it was like this record just going around and around and around. And I ended up hanging around with a group of kids that was mixed racially. Like at our high school, we had, you know, I guess the jocks and the white people, and then we had the blacks, and then we had us. We were like the hippies, and we were mixed, and of course we were all taking drugs and doing all that stuff too. So it was just a very confusing time. And so when I went to college, then that was even worse. I mean, I would get kicked out of my room all the time. So my roommate could have sex with her boyfriend. And I was just so confused. I had no idea what was right or wrong. I wasn't raised in any religion. My mother was the only breadwinner with a high school degree, and so she would work all day, and then she'd come home and just kind of go to her bedroom and disappear. So I didn't have anybody to talk to, and all these questions in my mind. What is the purpose of life? So when I went to college, after 1 year, it was like I just felt like, what am I doing here? Just preparing for a 40-hour-a-week job. I need to find the purpose of life before. And so eventually I got so desperate. That I just packed my backpack. That's all I had, with a few things. Started walking down the street. It was like in February, and it was cold. And I thought to myself, and I had maybe a couple $100 on me. That was total. And I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go somewhere where it's warm and sleep in the woods, whatever. And I had this purple cape. They were popular back then. This long purple cape, with a hood. So I thought, well, and that will be my sleeping bag when I'm out there sleeping. And so I just got on the road, hitchhiked to Chicago, got on a bus, and went to New Orleans. And anyway, so it was during that time when I was in New Orleans that I met a member of the Unification Church. And normally in Chicago, when any kind of religious groups would approach me, and there was a lot of it back then, like in downtown Chicago, the Hare Krishna and some other groups, and I was just like hardcore atheist, just like, no way, there's not a God. There's not a God, because this world is just too messed up. There can't be a God. So, these people would approach me just like, get lost, stay away from me. But when this guy approached me, it was a combination of circumstances that now I know. I was guided. It was a combination of circumstances that when he invited me to come over to the center, that I actually decided to go over there. And it was a combination that I was tired and I was hungry. I had been on the bus all night, and maybe it was like about noon at this point, and I was just standing outside the bus station just kind of looking around, and it was hot. And this Japanese guy approached me. And what I noticed about him really took me by surprise. And that was that when he looked at me, he had these pure eyes. And because I was just so used to, of course, I was kind of clueless. I'd walk around with these really short shorts, a halter top. And so, I was getting hit on a lot. But I was like totally ignorant, and I hated it, But hey, I'm free. I don't need to wear a bra, whatever. So, but this guy, men would always look at me with that sexual eye. And, but this guy, his eyes were just like so pure. So I actually went with him. And that's how I met the Unification Church. And I ended up, first they had a lecture, and we ate. I loved the food. It was first time I ever had curry, and it was delicious. And the people were were really, really nice. And there was like people from like all over the world. I remember all of them. One from Israel, one from France, Italy, Japanese, Korean, German. Rob knows a lot of these people too, and I was amazed that all these people were living together and working together. So when I first heard the principle, the first part, which is called the principles of creation, that actually made a lot of sense to me, because it talks about the ideal, the way that God originally intended the world, and it was like centered on happy families, whole happy families. And of course that made a lot of sense to me, especially with my background growing up in a broken home. And then it talked about that there was life after death as well, and I thought that was interesting. And then it talked about the fall of man, how we separated from God. And from this point, actually, a lot of things kind of went over my head, because I had no Christian foundation at all. I didn't go to church. I was not raised going to a church. And everything in the principle is based on the Bible, although it's a new interpretation. And so anyway, a lot of that stuff just kind of went over my head. But then I remember one of the last lectures really got to me, because it's called The Parallels of History. And it shows that there's like this pattern that God has been using, and it's been like hidden from all these theologians, people who have studied the Bible for years, that's their whole life. But somehow Reverend Moon, and he studied this for years, probably 10 years at least, somehow, because he was able to get out of the box, and he wasn't looking through that same paradigm at the Bible. He was able to actually see things there that nobody has seen before. And he discovered this pattern that God has been using to try to bring us back to him, to our original position. And I will say to save us. But our definition of salvation is completely different than the traditional, because our definition of salvation is restoration. Restoration to our original self, the person that we were meant to be, with 100% relationship with God, like Christ. This is what we were meant to be. And anyway, this last talk went all the way through history, and it was just amazing to see this pattern. And it came all the way to now, and it just kind of blew me away. And so I decided to join the church, and there was some pressure too, of course. And but it was really hard. I mean, some people, when they joined, they just felt so much love, and that's why they joined. They just felt all this love, and they understood stuff, but not me. It was just really hard to be in the church. But because I had been searching so much, I thought, okay, if there's any possibility at all, that this is true and that there actually is a God, then I've got to stay here, and I've got to try this out. So that's what I did. And it was just like very gradually I started to understand, and just through living the lifestyle as a unification church member, just living the lifestyle, and really being trained directly by Reverend Moon to to develop our spirituality, our faith, especially our faith in God, and then our love. Like, for instance, you've probably all heard about the fundraising that we would do. And, but there was two purposes. Of course, there was the purpose of raising money, but another purpose was that I really developed faith. And he would say things like, just, when you're fundraising, imagine that this bag of popcorn, that when they taste it, they'll get an explosion of love from you. And so to just put your love into this product, whatever it is you're selling. And then he would also say things like, and never give up, set your goal and never give up, because the spirit world is guiding you and working with you. So never give up, because many times it's right at that moment when you're ready to give up that the blessing comes. And this happened so many times. I think I shared here before. Like, I would have these flowers and I'd go all day long trying to sell them. Nobody wants to buy them. Nobody wants roses, And then I'd walk into this bar and this guy would come up to me and, say, "Hey, little lady, what you got there? I'll take those roses. Here you go." And he'd buy the whole thing, and then he'd go around and he'd give roses to all the women there. And there were so many miracles like that my faith really grew. But also, my love grew, because we traveled all over the country, and we met so many different kinds of people, all different races, all different economic levels. And and then we got persecuted, of course, and we had to love that person. That we just had to love that person. Thank you, and just keep overcoming and keep loving and keep loving. So that's all I'm gonna say for now. But the divine principle is revolutionary. It is a revelation. I was thinking that I believe that many breakthroughs, they take place when a person is able to get out of the box, and then they start seeing these connections that nobody has seen before. And it's only because their minds have been in this box. And so again, that's why I feel like this is like a huge religious breakthrough. And we're living in a time when we need this, because Christianity, just believing in Jesus, it's not enough. We need something that's intellectually satisfying, that we can really get intellectually, and something that really teaches us to love deeply, in a way requires us to love deeply. This is what we need. And the world is getting prepared for this. All these things are happening right now. Course of Miracles. Everybody knows that we need love. Something has to change. And there's all this interest in the spirit world as well now. There's like all these TV shows, near-death experiences, all this stuff. People are just at a totally different level, spiritually, intellectually. And so we need something new. And that is what the divine principle is. So I'm going to start the class next week. It'll be 6 weeks. It'll be from 12:30 to 2 after the church service. So bring a bag lunch with you. It's just a love offering to just, help the church cover the usage of the space. And if for some reason this time is just impossible for you, let me know and I can work out something different. I can have one-to-one online or a small group online. But I am just passionate about teaching this because I know the world needs this now. And I have been very blessed that I'm actually teaching 3 people right now, and one of them is here. And I've been meeting with Patty for several weeks now, and if we talked as much as we do, it would take the whole year. So I just wanted to ask Patty if you could just share a little bit how this experience, if you don't mind, come here so everybody can hear you, how this experience has been for you, and then finish up here.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Well, I will say this. For some reason, well, it was Debbie, so I had to listen to what she had to say. And then I kind of got pulled into it. It was a little terminology had to be learned, but then as we continued on with the classes, I became absolutely fascinated with this new perspective of the history in the Bible, which I don't think, I've never heard of how taking the historical view of the things that have occurred and seeing the patterns. We're not there yet. I haven't gotten the answer. She keeps teasing. But I find it incredibly fascinating, and for some reason I do enjoy learning other religions because I find so many commonalities within them, and I'm always looking for that opportunity to get something that possibly can give me in that next step of evolution, so to speak. So, and we have a lot of fun doing it too. So I would, if you have that, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I would really recommend it.
Thank you. Should I just go ahead and sing my song now?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to sing this song. I wrote it. It's actually just a repetition of what I've already said. It's called Change the World. Okay, hopefully we'll have no technical difficulties. When I was younger, all alone and blue. Oh, sorry. Always something. Need transposes. When I was younger, all alone and blue, it seemed the world was so messed up with nothing I could do. So much confusion in my heart, watching people fight and families torn apart. I saw people taking drugs with no feeling, people making love with no meaning, homeless people lying in the street, and it was making me weep, cry, 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 cry. Then I met a man who changed my life. He said that God has a plan to end all strife. My teacher told me that God is real, and He's waiting for us all to wake up and be the hands that He healed. 'Cause there's too many children crying, too many people dying, too many gunshots firing in the dark. And it's breaking His heart. Yes, it's breaking God's heart. It's breaking His heart. I was no believer when I heard this news. But when I thought about the life I was living, I had to choose between giving up and living in despair, or making a difference around me and learning to care. Because politicians are lying, kids are taking drugs and dying, blacks and whites are fighting in the street. So we just can't sleep. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Everybody wake up. There is a reason that you were born, and it sure isn't just making money for more and more. So find your purpose and do your part. Make a difference with your life and follow your heart. Then we'll see people everywhere uniting, history rewriting, hope all around, igniting the flames of love from heaven above. 'Cause it's all about love. Yes, it's all about love. It's all about love. Do something to change the world. You gotta do something to change the world. Come on and do something to change the world. Let's all do something to change the world now.
Thank you, Debbie.